Here's a class of 2025 wide receiver that we don't talk about nearly enough, who is absolutely becoming a priority target for the Miami Hurricanes.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Sunday. I'm Alex Donno. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and writer for allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So that priority wide receiver target that we're talking about is Sumner High, Tyler Williams. Miami is all over this young man, and we'll talk about the reasons why, okay? He's been on campus many times, including made I don't know if it was a surprise to the staff, but it was a surprise visit to a lot of us this past Thursday. He came down, showed up on campus, and I know someone who is very aware of what Tyler brings to the table. He's actually interviewed him before. Here's our pal, Chalupa Batman, 1/3 of the Avengers. Now, I know we're not purposely excluding Hoodie Girl. The problem we've had is my schedule and her schedule on weekends just never seem to match up. So Chalupa's going to hold down the fort today. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Obviously, shout out to Hoodie Girl, one of the hardest working people on the planet. We wish she was here with us. She's probably exhausted right now from saving some lives last night. But it's always fun to be here on Locked On, the best podcast on the planet. And like Donno, I'm excited about Tyler Williams. I think that surprised all of us when we saw that tweet this past week.
Yeah, and on Tyler, I know that some people will look at the label and say, "Up 3-star, I don't care." I feel like this guy is better than that 3-star label. Has an opportunity to ascend a little bit higher than that by the time his recruiting process is over. But my understanding, Chalupa, and my guys at Canes Insight, we're cool with Brad Tejeda, and the guys have been talking about this. Something that Miami really likes about Tyler, even beyond the obvious stuff, like being a really talented football player and an excellent athlete, is this guy has the work ethic. He's got the attitude. He's got the love for football that, they're trying not to recruit head cases when they have the opportunity not to do so. And Tyler Williams is one of those players that just seems to fit that bill.
He fits the culture. He's a great young man. And he's smart, athletic, and he has the integrity that you want in your locker room. Big kid, 6'1", about 195, 200, but he's long and lanky. He kind of carries the 6'1" like Jacoby George does. It's all arms and legs.
That's right.
And he returns to, and with someone with that kind of length, you would think he wouldn't work well in the return game, but he does have that quickness, that agility. As a vertical threat, he is everything Kevin Beard likes in a receiver and everything Mario likes in a young man. I think he has that off the field and the on the field that you want in your locker room. He comes from a program that's relatively new. Sumner's made a lot of noise in a short period of time, and I think that's probably why he's only a 3-star. But, man, he's one of those 3-stars that when you land around his sophomore or junior year in college, we all look back and go, how was he not higher rated? I think it's really important to hit on the Justin Scotts, obviously, but you also want to hit on the Dylan Days as well. And I think he's one of those guys in this class.
And okay, so you've interviewed Tyler Williams before. You speak with him. Where do you think Miami stands among the leaders for him? Do you think Miami's at the top, near the top, and who else is in the mix for him?
I'd say there's 2 Florida schools that I think are really heavy on him, and one of them has one of our guys there. UCF is really, really high on him.
That's right.
They went to see him at the school. He's building a relationship with Coach Tim Harris, which we know he's a really good recruiter, but he spoke endlessly about Kevin Beard, about the relationship he's built with Kevin Beard and how much he just enjoys their talks, not just with recruiting. he just enjoys talking to Kevin Beard and getting that knowledge from him. I'd have to say we're at the top of his list.
I love it. And when you talk about receivers being all arms and legs, another guy that I think of, Chalupa, is Cortez Mills. Yeah, I
Oh
see this
my
guy
gosh.
making those ridiculous one-handed
Oh
grabs,
my
just
gosh.
dominating the 7-on-7 circuit. Now, Cortez, who is a 4-star, and he's a local kid out of Homestead. This is really a must-get for Miami. We believe Miami is in the lead for him. He's been getting those crystal balls pointing him to the U. And so I wanted to bring up Mills again on this episode, Chalupa, because our colleague, Brian Smith, who we all work with him at allhurricanes.com.
The GOAT.
He is the GOAT, and he just interviewed Cortez Mills over the weekend, and he sent me the audio. And so, Brian first, he asked him, like, what would it take for anyone to kind of pass Miami? Kind of, we're all acknowledging Miami's in the lead, and then Cortez starts to talk about who on the staff is recruiting him, and this is one of the cooler sound bites. So this is Cortez Mills with our own Brian Smith.
Oh, yeah.
I know that Miami's really high. What does somebody got to do to knock off Miami?
I mean,
I already know. I cover Miami. Sorry, no.
I mean, to knock off Miami, Miami is pretty high on my list because it's the hometown. But to knock off Miami, you just got, bring your A game. You just got to keep recruiting me hard. And just recruit me harder than what Miami does.
Obvious. I know Cristobal recruiting you hard. I don't have to ask. I already know what he's like. Talk about your relationship with the assistants at the University of Miami.
Coach Kevin Beard, great guy, receiver coach. He just, since he been recruiting me, since he was at Toledo, and he just been high on me. Coach Cooney, like the whole receiver, like the whole offensive coaching staff has been on me. Even the defensive coaching staff,
Really?
they got the defensive coaching staff. So like Miami just play a big part of my recruitment.
So how cool is that? There's so much to unpack there.
I love the staff.
They got defensive coaches recruiting this guy. It's like you got Kevin Beard on line 1, you got Jevis Jackson on line 2.
Joe Salavea is calling him at night.
Jason Taylor probably is calling him. Oh man,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and you were and we listened to this, Chalupa, because we reacted to this even before we started the show, and you pointed out something on the Mills laugh. Like you think that he doesn't have the best poker face when talking about where Miami stands.
The very first question is, what does somebody have to do to basically dethrone Miami at the top? And the first thing he did was laugh, which lets us know that he knows that we know. That was because he's got that relationship with Brian. He's probably known Brian since he was a young freshman on the circuit. So that's also probably a laugh to Brian. Like, well, that I know that they're at the top. Yeah, I love that interview. I love that soundbite. What I really like about that is, just like with Wade and Charles, Coach Kevin Beard has been recruiting him since Toledo. Wade and Charles' first ever offer was Coach Kevin Beard at Toledo. It's that relationship building that Kevin Beard is known for. He doesn't just recruit these young men. They're friends, they're buddies. He's a mentor. He's someone that they can go to just for advice. And Cortez Mills easily has to be at the top of their receiver board. Last year, 79 catches, 1,600 yards, 18 touchdowns. He averaged 20 yards a catch, probably the best 50-50 ball receiver in the nation. Plays on one of the best 7-on-7 teams in the country. His resume just reads like a who's who, no matter what the prospect is. And this is, again, another quality young man as well. When you heard him speak about his recruiting, there was nothing superficial in that sound clip. It was all about relationships and building and trust. And I think this is another young man, like a JoJo, like a Chance, that's a great character guy and a elite receiver.
Well, we got so much more we want to talk about here with our good friend Chalupa Batman. And by the way, I've referenced a couple times who Chalupa has interviewed. You guys want to check out his incredible YouTube channel. He is probably the fastest riser in the Hurricanes content space. Like I'm going to be looking for another team to cover at some point with the way Chalupa is rising. And there's other recruits that we want to talk about. We talk about Tyler Williams from Sumner. He's got a couple of prominent teammates that Miami is after, like Ziyare Addison and Cameron White. I want to talk about one of my favorite running backs in this class, Alvin Henderson, who Chalupa has interviewed before, a certain Miami Central defensive tackle, an IMG Academy offensive lineman, and we want to get into previews and expectations for week 2 of spring practice, which is finally, after the longest spring break ever. It felt eternal. Spring practice is going to be back this coming week. So, my friends, you know what you want to do? You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And I know, my friends, I know you are keeping it locked to Nissan. Guys, each week we're picking one team that stands out. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. We're picking a team that's pushed it farther than the rest. Just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to that next level. The Utah State Aggies are obviously this week's Nissan Rogue. The team absolutely surprised us with a powerful performance against New Mexico, giving them their first outright Mountain West title in program history. They say, win life, go Rogue. And that's exactly what the Aggies have done here. So you want to take that Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. We are also brought to you, my friends, by, I'm so happy that they're part of the family now, Fire TV. I've been using Fire TV for years. It is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, and so much more. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Thank you so much for making this Sunday episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We got the man, the myth, the legend, Chalupa Batman is with us. Now, Chalupa, you mentioned Sumner being like a fast rising program in the state of Florida. Another player that Miami really likes, and we know how Cristobal and Mirabal are after all the top offensive linemen. 4-star offensive tackle Ziyare Addison. I believe you've interviewed him as well. What do you like about this player on the field, and where do you think Miami stands in his recruitment?
He's a monster, Donno. He's another one of these Derek Plaws, way too big to be that athletic kind of guys. Also plays defensive tackle, so he's got that tenacity when it comes to being on the offensive line. Can play inside, can play outside. I tell you what I love about him. He, on his last visit, was in the line, to take the pictures, right? Everyone is in line. They're going to suit up. And he thought to himself, he saw Mirabal in the background and was like, I don't want to do this. Decided no pictures this weekend. I'll just spend my weekend watching film with that guy.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. He said, I took pictures last time. It's fine. I won't do that anymore. I will bother him all weekend. He's going to be. And he said he thought he understood film study, and Mirabal just opened his mind. He said at the beginning of it, he almost started to go, I don't know as much as I thought I did. And then he said by the end of the first film session, he even felt comfortable with the terminology he didn't know. That's how good of a teacher Mirabal is. And he just started soaking up that knowledge. So he spent that last visit attached to Mirabal's hip and said, I don't want none of the superficial. Don't sell me anything. Don't put me in a uniform. I just want to learn from this guy. That tells me everything I need to know about a recruit.
And that also tells me the Sumner players must be really well coached because, Tyler Williams, who we talked about, very much has like a football junkie type of attitude like that. And it also reminds me of it, and not a Sumner guy. He's up in Grayson in Georgia. But when I interviewed Jalen Hollywood Bell last week, he talked about when he made his unofficial, he and his father, his father is a defensive backs coach. So I'm sure he grew up with that sort of mentality. They got there a couple hours early in like 6 a.m. to go watch a film session, to go watch it with the defensive
That was my
backs. Like they
favorite
wanted
part
to
of
sit
it.
in. Yeah, they wanted to sit in on position meetings and watch film. Like, man, these are the types of players Miami needs. And there's another Sumner player that you've spoken to recently, linebacker Cameron White. Now, Miami is after a lot of top linebackers. How do you feel? Is Miami prioritizing White, and how does he feel about Miami?
I feel like Miami's prioritizing about 5 or 6 linebackers at the moment.
That's why
I think
I'm
that's one of the
wondering, like,
positions.
because they can't bring them all, can they?
That's one of the positions where we keep looking at every time they bring one on campus. Like, okay, exactly how many are you guys trying to get this year? But Cameron White's another just athletic monster, plays defensive end and linebacker. So he actually started out playing defensive end and went backwards, which is something you don't see people do a lot.
Yeah.
And he said standing up, it started making sense to him. Being in space made more sense to him. He hits like a freight train. I don't know if anyone who's watching has seen a highlight. Don't watch the full thing if you don't want to. Just watch the first minute. He's probably one of the hardest hitters in the class, and another one of those students of the game. The first time you ask him about his Miami visit, it's Coach D. Nick and what he learned from him and how much he loves the relationships. When they went to see him at the school, his face lights up ear to ear when he talked about Coach D. Nick coming to see him. And we're in a little bit of a battle with teams like Oklahoma. He's got some of those, those Big Ten SEC offers that you would expect, Penn State, Oklahoma, for those type of thumper linebackers. But again, we've got his brother Tyler Williams in the fold. We've got Ziyare in the fold. When they stop by Sumner, they can kind of try to recruit them all at the same time, which probably gives us a good advantage when it comes to all three of them.
It's a good point. A player I want your take on who's actually from the state of Alabama. So, Auburn is definitely a factor in his recruitment. Running back Alvin Henderson, who's one of, I think there's a number of good running backs Miami has to choose from. I'm also a huge fan of Byron Lewis from American Heritage, but, we've seen Miami taking multiple running backs in the last few classes. Alvin Henderson recently dropped a top 5, and we kind of believe the most prominent 3 in there are Auburn, Florida State, and Miami. And on Hendo, Chalupa, I have a difficult time because I talk to a lot of different people who cover recruiting very closely, even in different states. I'm having a hard time kind of getting a consensus on Henderson because I talked to a couple people who think he's going to end up at Auburn, right? Whether he commits at Auburn now or he commits at the end of the cycle, he's going to be an Auburn Tiger, the home state pull, and he lives near. I don't think too far from their campus is going to be too much for him. There are others who think Florida State is the spot for him, and maybe fewer people think he ends up at Miami, but there are some prominent recruiting analysts who think, hey, Miami is more in this recruitment than you guys think. So I have a hard time getting a consensus between those 3. What do you think is going on there?
I think we've all heard the same thing. It's that at first, before the Saban retirement, it was going to be hard to beat Saban in his backyard. I think Hendo went to his first camp at his Alabama camp when he was like 10. So it's just hard to beat that. It's like trying to get a South Florida offensive tackle from Mario Cristobal. It's just hard to do. Now that they were out of the fold, it was okay. Now we got to worry about Auburn because that's the real hometown. That like you said, the close proximity school. What I love, though, is when I spoke to him, one of the first things he brought up was, after Coach Tim Harris left, he said his visit, and it's no disrespect to Coach Tim Harris, but he forgot that they didn't have a running back coach. He enjoyed his visit that much. He said Coach Dennis Smith, Coach Pop Cooney, Coach Kevin Beard, even some of the defensive coaches, he said his relationship is with Mario Cristobal. He said he loved Coach Tim Harris, and he's got to know Matt Merritt as well, spoke very highly of him. But he said his relationship as far as Miami goes is with Mario. He said that's his guy. That's the guy that he talks to every day. When I recorded with him, he was late to the interview because he was at the school with Mario. Mario flew in. Wow. Yeah, Mario flew in to see him after one of his basketball games. He loves that relationship he has with Mario. So I think much like all these other recruits, because of our relationship building, we're going to be in it until the end. I would say It's one of us. It's one of the three. I would be very shocked if he picks a Florida school and it's not us, though, just because of the love that Miami has shown him. He's one of those attention to detail kind of football players. Like he said, when he sat down and watched film with Dawson, one of the things he was asking is, like, how many free hitters do I have to deal with after, when I'm running the ball out of the shotgun? And he was asking Dawson all these very intricate questions. And he said Dawson had immediate answers for him. Oh, there's no free hitters in this offense. There's da-da-da. And I think those kind of things are what made his light bulb go, oh, they've been thinking about me. Because he said, he gets recruited, but people don't tell him how you particularly fit in this offense. So he fires off a few questions to see if they really know him. And apparently Dawson had answers immediately. Oh, no, we know that in that offense, you run a wing T. In this offense, it would be. And he was just like, oh, they're as interested as I am. So I think because of that attention to detail our staff shows him, we're going to be in it.
I like that a lot. I want your take on a defensive tackle that we're becoming familiar with down here. He just moved down to the area. He's going to play at Miami Central, and that's Floyd Boucard. Now, Miami wants all the Central linemen. Every year they want all the Central
yes, we do.
linemen, okay? And the Hurricanes have been trending positively for his new teammate, Randy Adarica. And, Boucard still kind of early here because he just received his Miami offer less than 2 weeks ago. But the Hurricanes are all in it. And this guy seems gigantic, Chalupa. He's in the 300-pound neighborhood already. I think he's around 6'3". What have you seen and heard so far from Boucard? And do you think Miami can end up shooting up to the top here in a relatively short period of time?
He's huge. That's one. Two, it feels like his rise in recruiting and his interest and rise on the Miami board has been parallel. We started hearing about him rising up in the rankings, and then it was almost like, okay, well, Miami's in on him. And then he's visiting, and then he's visiting again, and then he's saying that he's coming back. It just seems like that pipeline is continuing. It's getting stronger. Obviously, he's in a locker room where their heroes are Miami Hurricanes now. They all want to be Ruben Bain. He's a Cane. They want to be Armando Blunt. He's a Cane. They want to be Wes Basaint. He's a Cane. So once he got to Central, he probably got his offer, and the Central guys are probably like, oh, that's how it works. Once you get the Miami offer, you're official here. It's probably a thing in that locker room. And we've seen the visits. What does Brian always say? Track the visits. Follow the visits. It wasn't just the first initial one. Then he's back. And he just posted a graphic, I think it was Friday, that he's locked in coming in for another visit. Right. I think they're doing what they did with Artavius Jones. They recognize the talent early, and before he blows up, let's let him know that we're interested, we're in on him, and we want to start building that relationship. I'd be shocked if we don't land one or both of them, just because, again, the positive recruiting to say, the guy, you want to wear 4 at Central, right? The guy who's the reason why is on my team. And then the guy after him who followed his footsteps are on my team. So you continue following the footsteps of those great Central pass rushers, and that leads you to the U.
Well, spring football, week 2, just had the week off for spring break. We're finally going to get the second week of spring practice coming up on Tuesday. Here's what we want to see from Cam Ward. I love how Chalupa, I don't know if you knew that, but you're wearing a Cam Ward jersey now, Chalupa.
Oh, yeah.
the Ward number 1. So we're going to talk about Ward and all of his awesome Miami teammates when we come back. You want to keep it locked? We're not done yet on this new Locked On Canes. LinkedIn Jobs. Guys, I have found jobs through LinkedIn before. I know this works. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you gives you the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Maybe not for Miami, but it's time to fill out your brackets. And I will be filling those out. The Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown Show is available tomorrow on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Experts Andy Patton and Isaac Shade are breaking down their brackets and discussing everything that you need to know to fill out a winning bracket and prepare for this year's NCAA tournament. Find the Locked On Bracket Breakdown 7 a.m. and on tomorrow morning, Monday, on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We have our man Chalupa Batman with us, my colleague at allhurricanes.com. So CB, you're rocking the Cam Ward jersey. I'll tell you, he looked as good as advertised out there week number 1. How important is his presence out there to stabilize that quarterback position? And what would you like to see from him for these next few weeks of spring football?
I think it's huge, not just for the quarterback room. We've got young guys in there, but we've got a lot of youth in the receiver room too. A lot of those guys, I think it's huge to build that connection with him early. He's only going to have 1 year with some of the younger guys that we want to see involved. So it's awesome that he's out there early. It would have probably hurt the offense if he would have come in, in the fall or something. I think it's huge just for timing, getting that timing down with the younger guys like Ray and Robbie and JoJo. They may not have that experience to understand how to speed up that process. So having the longer process obviously helps. And I'm happy to see him out there looking like the same Cam Ward that we saw at Washington State. The release looks quick. The deep field, the deep ball accuracy, the ball placement, putting the ball where only his guys have a chance to catch it. That ball from Restrepo is a great catch. But it's also one of those balls where if Restrepo does not make a great catch, it's an incompletion. That's not a 50-50 ball. That's not a chance for the DB to make a play. It's I trust my guy to do something super heroic, or it's 2nd and 10. That's what you get from a veteran quarterback. I think it's just going to help so much in this offense. A guy that's calm, but he trusts in his arm. He believes in his arm talent, which allows him to take those shots down the field. Now, I think it's going to help guys like Horton, Jacoby George that showed last year they could stretch the field, but it's also, like I said, going to help the young guys get up to speed faster. You already heard him mentioning some of the young guys like JoJo. He wants to get them involved. And with a veteran like that, I would imagine he can have some sway in the room. Hey, Dawson, let me get Ray for a play or two, or let me get Robbie for a play or two. And I'm sure they'll listen to him.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And we've definitely heard signs of that collaboration. I know that even before spring started, there were some reports about how, Dawson can kind of adapt the offense, not only to maximize Cam Ward's strengths, to also, help him prepare for the NFL draft next year, because that's obviously a thing. And,
Yes.
None of this will come at the expense of team success, because if Cam Ward can have the best year yet at Miami, he can, help Miami have their best year in a long time. Any other, we've been talking a lot this past week, CB, about, young players who can step up. And obviously there are some true freshmen like the aforementioned JoJo Trader, who's already looking really good. But there's also 2023. There's some guys from that class last year. We had some ones that have already made an impact, like Ruben Bain, Mark Fletcher, CeCe Maui-Noah especially. But there's some other guys who I talk a lot about. Popo Aguirre. I talk about Samson Okunlola, guy Riley Williams, who I think could become more of a receiving threat this year. Like, who do you look at as guys from that talented 2023 class who may be able to just burst through the ceiling this year?
I think guys like Robbie Washington cannot go unnoticed. Electric. I think because we got 3 really good ones in the class this year, we kind of forgot about our shiny toys we got last year. And Robbie is one of those. It could factor into the return game as well. I'm really excited for those linebackers, for his brother, for Bobby on the other side, who's looking even bigger this year. A guy like Malik Bryant, who can play just everywhere. And let's not forget Jaden Wayne, someone who got to play a little bit last year, but because of Ruben Bain's aura and what he got to do as a freshman, maybe we forgot a little bit about Jaden, who is a massive human being. Joshua Horton, another guy from that class. I think that class is going to be the class that this team is really built around. Those guys, I think, will start to come to the forefront. Robert Stafford I was trying to think of,
Yes.
I know he's a little banged up right now, but I think Robert Stafford is someone that will factor in, especially with the depth at corner. I think he will definitely factor in before the season is over.
I love it. Chalupa Batman, anything you're cooking this week coming up, whether it be on your YouTube channel with the You Heard podcast, you're a part of that awesome team as well, and at allhurricanes.com. What can we expect this week?
This week it's linebacker week on my channel. 4-star linebacker from Central, Ezekiel Marcelin. That one's gonna drop Tuesday. And then on Friday from IMG, 4-star linebacker Gavin Nix. That one's going to drop. Yeah, that guy is built like Thor. He actually looks like a superhero. It's insane. Both of those guys just love Coach D Nick. So be on the lookout for that. Obviously, You Heard every Sunday and Wednesday. I'm so bad about that schedule. We record a day before, so I'm bad about that.
Right.
And then obviously stay locked onto All Hurricanes. The amount of articles that come out, especially nowadays with recruiting, you don't want to miss anything. Recruiting swings from day to day. So make sure you're tapped in with All Hurricanes. It's a great staff over there that covers a litany of sports, whether it's basketball, football, baseball. Stay locked in and you'll never not be updated. So then you don't have to ask me and Donald, like, wait, when did this guy get crystal balled? If he got crystal balled, Brian threw up an article, I promise. So make sure that you're saving All Hurricanes on whatever browser you have and show us some love on the website.
I love it. And make sure you follow us on X. You can follow Chalupa. You can follow him under his legal name at Corey Carmona. You can follow me at Locked On Canes. And if you follow us at Locked On Canes, we will follow you back. Make sure you support Chalupa's YouTube channel. Make sure if you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to our channel. If you listen to the audio version, which is awesome, you can take us with you wherever you go. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Brian Smith is going to be joining me on tomorrow's episode on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.